Yeah.
I wanted to make sure that I was going there not because I felt better than them, but because I wanted to share the good that God has showed me in my life.
Hello everyone and welcome to a new episode of Ignite. I'm your host Matthew Taylor and today I have the pleasure of introducing you to our brand new co-host Genesis Gresham.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
So Genesis, we want to introduce you to our audience. Do you mind sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah. My name is Genesis Gresham and I'm a freshman marketing major here at SAU. I was born in Nashville, but I've lived in Georgia for the majority of my life. Some fun facts about me. I'm a huge baker when I'm at home, and I have to say I'm a huge Christopher Nolan fan.
That's a good choice.
Favorite director.
It's a great director. Well, thank you so much, and we are so excited to have you as part of the team.
Thank you so much. Right, so over spring break, the ERC planned a mission trip to Chetumal, and students of the SJC and other departments attended as preachers and media crew.
We've invited 3 of these students onto the show today to share their experiences.
Let's get into the episode.
Welcome, and thank you guys so much for joining us today. Before we get started, we just want to introduce the 3 of you, if you don't mind just saying your name, class standing, and major.
Yes, my name is Chidi. I am a junior this year, and I'm an accounting major.
I am Naomi Lindor. I am a public relations major with a marketing minor, and I'm also a junior.
My name is Derek Aubin. I am a mass comm media production major, and I am a sophomore this year.
All right, awesome.
Wow, thank you so much, Chidi, Naomi, Derek. Love that. So what initially inspired you guys to attend this mission trip?
So it was kind of a really weird thing for me. It was motivated by some class credit. I needed some service learning credit really bad. And weirdly enough, I was in class one day, sitting next to a friend of mine who also ended up going on the trip. I looked over his shoulder. He was actually registering for the mission trip at that moment. I looked at it and I was like, that looks interesting. I asked him about it. He said, oh yeah, it's a mission trip to Mexico over spring break and you'll get some service learning credit for it. Like, you should sign up. And I was like, you know what, for the credit, I'll do anything. So I signed up, not really fully aware of like the fact that I would be going to Mexico. It was a less of a conscious decision and more of a, let me just do it to do it. But that was kind of my original inspiration. It was for the credit, but it became so much more than that.
Awesome.
Wow. I have always wanted to go to Mexico. That has always been a dream of mine. I love Hispanic culture. I'm like super passionate about learning about it. And besides that, I have a heart for missions and ministry. And I was actually invited by a friend who had over fundraised. That was just like a little blessing. And she was just like, hey, would you want to go on a mission trip fully paid for with me? And I was like, are you kidding me? Duh, of course I would. And from that moment on, I was just giddy about it. So that was my initial motivation.
That's awesome. That's a blessing.
Yes.
For me, I guess I would say I signed up for it on a whim. You know, my professor brought it up in class, and I'm like, you know, this sounds super cool to do a lot of media work in Mexico. And it sounded awesome, and you know, Mexico is awesome. I've been to Puerto Rico before, and I'm like, you know what? A whole bunch of Hispanic people, that's my people, so why say no?
Yeah, that's awesome. So you guys left the Friday before spring break, or I guess beginning of spring break. How was the initial travel trip?
I wouldn't even call the day we left Friday. I would call it demon hours of the night. We left the campus at 2:40, about 3 a.m.
Yeah.
Wow.
So a lot of us didn't sleep, or a lot of us only slept a couple hours before we left. So the travel started pretty rough. We were all really tired. It was really early in the morning. We took a 2-hour bus ride to the Atlanta airport. And then from there, we went through TSA, went through security, ended up flying into Cancun. And then from Cancun, we took a 6-hour bus ride to Chetumal, which is where we stayed. So,
Wow, sounds like a interesting time, I should say. Yeah, for sure. But once you guys were all settled in, what were your major responsibilities?
We actually had quite a bit of individual responsibility, especially, you know, I don't know about the media team. I know that they work together as a team a lot. For us, as the missionaries going out to the different churches to preach the evangelistic series, it was our responsibility to communicate with our translators, communicate with our drivers, figure out times. We were going alone to these churches, so we weren't going like in groups of 2 or 3, which that was communicated to us, but I don't know, it didn't hit until we got there that we would be going 15 minutes to an hour and 15 minutes away to preach at these churches every night by ourselves. So there's a lot of responsibility for our own communication, for making sure that we're getting the food that we need, making sure that, you know, our churches media stuff works, that we can set up our computer. We had to we had to practice our sermons every day. We had to, you know, get the rest we needed every day. So there's a lot of individual responsibility.
I guess for me, because I was with the media team looked a lot different compared to what the preaching side of the group did. For us, we did a lot of work with, you know, just making sure that we got them, showing the love of God throughout Chetumal, and making sure that not only we got their individual stories, you know, because there's so many stories to be told, even if you have like one person translator showing up like last minute, right before you're about to preach, you know, the people need to would want to hear a story as interesting as that. And, you know, the show that we were shooting was, you know, a mix of both their stories, but as well as the overall story that God was trying to teach or preach to us. So we captured them, but at the same time for us, the media team also has had time to kind of go off to these different locations to record this one preacher who preached in Spanish, the same exact thing they were preaching, just on a shorter scale, just so that we could get a flow of every day of each service.
Well, you mentioned a little bit of the language barrier, and having a translator, that's definitely very nice to get through the sermons and such. But were there other issues that came from the language barrier, figuring that out with communication?
There definitely was. I will say there was definitely quite a lot. For those people who did speak Spanish, I think that by the end of the trip, we all had such an amazing time. We all had a successful experience, and I think everyone did so well in everything that they did. But I will say, when we got there, it was it was really difficult for those of us who didn't speak Spanish, because we were in an area of Mexico where almost no one there spoke English at all. And so the only people that we could really, truly effectively communicate with were those who were in our group from the Southern.
The rest of us.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as Naomi said before, every night when we're going out to these churches, you're by yourself. The only other person who speaks English with you is your translator. And for a lot of us, our translators, their English isn't 100% fluency. So they're most of the way there, but there's still a little bit of barriers to communication. So, you know, talking to your driver, talking to people at different storefronts, talking to church members, it became really, really difficult in the beginning. And you're looking around and you're like, how am I going to navigate this? But God really made a way, I will say. And as the trip goes along, it was such a crazy thing of you would see that these experiences that you're having with people, it was like there was no language barrier at all. It was like words didn't need to be exchanged, or God would bless you with just the right thing to say in Spanish at the right time, and just everything turned out so well and more perfectly than I ever could have expected. So I will say communication barriers were there in the beginning, but by the end, I think everything turned out perfectly.
It's almost supernatural, and I would accredit it to God. I feel like the amount of laughter that was shared between me and these church members who speak no English, and I speak poquito Espanol. I speak so little Spanish, and yet we would be dying in the road, laughing, talking, just sharing. And it was as if that barrier was gone. And also we worked with very closely with this school by our hotel that we were staying at, and we were interacting with these kids every day, playing volleyball, playing basketball, playing different sports with them, just chatting with them. And the Spanish speaking students would kind of translate once in a while for us who didn't speak Spanish. But truly, the connection was so strong between, there would be certain kids that I was just oh, ya fit, and just these random kids that now I feel so connected to, but truly we never exchanged any real words. But it was pretty amazing, and I don't feel like that happens outside of settings like that in such a strong way.
Yeah, I 1,000% agree with what Chidi said. God makes these barriers, or He breaks these barriers that you have. For the media team, it was 2 sets of us. So there was the Southern group that went, and there was the group from the Mexico College, Montemerolos, if I can say that correctly. And a lot of them didn't speak English, or they spoke very few English. And we would be paired up with them just to kind of see the culture and see how they would work, see how the Mexico team would kind of view things differently. And for me, I was partnered up with this guy who knew absolutely no English whatsoever. And for me, it was the biggest struggle. And, I'm Puerto Rican, so my mom grew up in a way of like a household that she would speak Spanish sometimes, and she would speak to my grandmother in Spanish, my grandfather in Spanish. And, I didn't really pick that up. So to echo what Naomi said, un poquito de español. And, it was a barrier that like over time it kind of, you realize that it's there, but like you kind of progress past that. The guy who was running the whole thing, I would work really closely with him, and he knew English, but it was more of a, I know it, but it's still like my language is Spanish, so like that's my go-to. And I remember I was having a full-on conversation with him about where this camera's supposed to be, how we're supposed to move it, how this audio is supposed to be. And for some reason, looking back on it, he would just be ripping off these sentences in Spanish. I would somehow understand them, and then I'm like, yeah, we need to do this, this, and this in English, and then he would understand it, and then rip it back out in Spanish, and I'm like, I'm understanding exactly where you need to go. And yeah, I would point out things in English that I needed clarification about, but over time, God really breaks his barriers down, even if you don't know anything, or if you know very little, as me and Naomi and Chidi all know. So
That's incredible.
Yeah, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, so you touched a little bit on there being a bit of a language barrier, of course, and how some of the translators might not have been super fluent in English. So how would you describe your dynamic with the translators?
Let me tell you guys, my translator is literally, like, she very quickly became, like, my best friend. Her name is Cynthia, and she's, like, I believe 26, so that's not too far off from our age, like 4 years or so between me and her. And it was probably the most encouraging part of the trip for me. It was my relationship that I built with her husband, and with our driver. It was just every day seeing them working together for the same cause. Like, we would both just be there, like, with tears in our eyes. Every day we would talk about how much we're going to miss each other, and she told me, how much of a true friend she sees me as. And she would encourage me before these messages. She would say, Naomi, these church members are coming up to me and telling me how much they see the Holy Spirit in you, and they're telling me how much, God is using you. God is using you here. And I'm just sitting there like, wow, I'm in Mexico with this woman I have never met before, and she's moving me to tears right now with the way that she's treating me with love, and the way that she's treating me with so much. She's so inviting and so kind. I feel like I found a family right there in Chetumal. Like, I'm never going to forget about them. We've stayed in contact, and I believe that we'll stay in contact until Jesus comes, really.
And my experience with my translator was definitely different. I had a translator who was a little bit of an older lady. She actually wasn't from Mexico. She was from Belize. And I remember I met her on the first night, and she was really sweet, incredibly sweet lady. But this is someone who knows what she wants and knows that a church service is supposed to be a certain way, and we need to get you there. And so I will say we had one experience that was really, really funny where I was mid-sermon in front of this whole church, and I'm preaching, and she looks at me mid-sermon and into her mic in front of the whole church. She goes, "The audience is falling asleep, Chidi. We should make this, let's have everyone stand up and stretch." And so the entire church stood up, stretched in the middle of my sermon, and sat back down. And we had a lot of experiences like that where she would really just push me and push me and push me to kind of just be a better preacher. I will say, preaching is not my background. I'm an accounting major. I've never done anything like that before, but I really appreciated that my relationship with my translator was, she was almost like a mother to me while I was there. And she was like, "Hey, Chidi, we're really going to push you and make sure that, you gain these skills and that you can really make a huge impact here, while you're here." And, she did everything in her power to make sure I got there. And so it was, tough love a lot, but I really, really appreciated it. And my relationship with her is, so special, and I'm going to cherish that forever.
We really couldn't have made it through the trip without the translators.
Yeah.
That was such a blessing, and God really I really feel that God set us up in the exact churches we were meant to be at, with the exact people that we were meant to be at. Like, it was clearly done very prayerfully, because anyone besides Cynthia, I don't think I would have connected with as well as her.
Oh, that's incredible.
So was it all work, no play, or did you guys have any opportunities at all to enjoy the beautiful nature or cultural aspects that Mexico has to offer?
We played. Like,
Oh, yeah.
we played.
Yeah, we did.
We
We
played.
did.
Like, we were in Mexico.
I wasn't expecting it to have so much playtime.
No,
actually.
playtime. Like, we had a lot of fun. We went to cenotes, which are like these like pool
Well
cave
springs.
kind of things. So much fun. We went to like 2 or 3 of those. We walked around Chetumal. We got to walk around Cancun. We went to the beach one night in Cancun.
Tulum.
We went to Tulum and we did a bunch of tourist attractions there. Like, we had so much fun. I would say it was such a good balance between work and play, because I know, like, this trip was during spring break. We all gave up our spring break to go and to be of service, and I really, really appreciate that ERC gave us the opportunity to have some really great, just relaxed, fun time while we were there.
Yeah, we got to play a lot. Not only did we get to go to these different tourist attractions and stuff like that, like, really it felt like a spring break, you know what I mean? But we also got to just the interaction with those kids that I was talking about.
Yeah.
The high school or elementary, it was kind of both, that we were placed in, that we were interacting with every day. That was so much fun. We would like come back, or we would come after like practicing our sermons for hours and hours, and then we would just get to play volleyball for hours. They would ask for our signatures, they would ask for pictures. It was so fun building those relationships, and the time in the sun was amazing. It was really hot there though. I literally at the very first like beachy attraction we went to, I got the worst sunburn of my
day one.
life. Like, the worst of my life. I'm still in pain
Like,
today.
I'm telling you this, like, because I genuinely check the weather app every day. It was 90 degrees every day.
Oh
we
my
were there.
word.
From 85 to 90 every
single
single day.
day.
So it was hot. Imagine preaching in a suit in Mexico.
No,
Come on now.
yeah, I was almost embarrassed at how much I was. My face, my members would be like, "Are you okay?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "No, I'm okay. I always look like this."
Like, the sweat stains, like, my clothes will never recover.
Never.
Like, it's really that bad.
Yeah, you know, going off of a lot of that, you know, Mexico has so much to offer, and, you know, the ERC does such a good job. You know, you work hard for the Lord. You definitely play hard, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, for us, I was pleasantly shocked. You know, in high school, I went on a mission trip to Puerto Rico, and we helped build this church. And it was a fantastic experience, but it was completely the opposite way. You know, they had us in Puerto Rico, there was structure, and flip it to here in Mexico with the ERC. It was a lot of, you know, we study hard, we work hard, but, you know, we also want you to experience the culture.
Yeah.
We want you to experience the food. We want you to experience the atmosphere in which you are in. And, you know, it was like, that's something that I love to do. Like, love to see different cultures, see different things. You know, I was watching this one documentary, and it was just showcasing all of the different, like, parts of South America, and it was awesome. And I'm really glad that we got to see that, and I was shocked. So, in a good way.
So what kind of an impact do you guys hope that you had on the people down there while you were there?
I would love to start this out, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Both before my trip, during my trip, and after my trip, I've had different reflections. Before my trip, I was really worried, really nervous about it, because I wanted to be very careful not to go into this town with what people call a savior complex. I wanted to make sure that I was going there not because I felt better than them, but because I wanted to share the good that God has showed me in my life. And while I was there, to be told to my face that the Holy Spirit is with me, I just started crying. Just to be told that people were seeing that and were feeling that from me, like from little old Nay, I was just like shocked by that. And since I've left, I think that the number one thing that I've prayed that people got from that is that they have the opportunity to live a new life in Christ every day that they choose to. That everything that they've ever done and anything that they're inclined to do, all of these negative things that take over our lives because we're human, they can leave it behind and start fresh every single day. And I just pray that that's what was screamed out of my sermons.
I would say, like, in a similar fashion, like, I genuinely don't think at the end of the day that the sermons were my like primary ministry. I think my ministry was just the interactions I had. And I'm not trying to go in there and trying to change anything. I think they already have a beautiful church, a beautiful culture. I think those people, especially at my church, they knew who God was. And so all I could do is just go there and just help to maybe like revitalize the energy a little bit. Bring positivity, bring joy.
Which you
have
do.
fun.
You bring positivity and joy everywhere.
But just have fun with those people and just experience each other and to just see what we can learn from each other. And I learned a lot from them. And so the only thing that I would say that is an impact I wish I could have left or that I hope I left is just that there's so much joy in Christ. And I think that just knowing Christ is such a beautiful thing, and you can just be happy that you have such a free and beautiful life and that God has given you that. And so that's all that I can share and all that I can hope that I impacted them with.
For me, I would say, my impact, I didn't do as much preaching or as much like interaction, and I did, I guess starting off, God is love, right? And no matter what I did, the little interactions that I had with the people, I wish that I showed his love, and I want to say I showed his love, and we're not going to see the impacts till we reach heaven, and I saw it every day through everyone who was preaching. The media team covered every different church that we could, and I saw, not everybody, but I saw a good amount of people preaching, and the minute they were on the pulpit to the minute they got there to that church, they showed his love. They showed who God was, and that was great for them. And the impact on me, I want to show the love of Christ through the things that we produce, the thing that we showed, and I hope that really reaches so many people.
I just can't wait for people to see what you guys made, and for people to see authentically what we were doing, how we were growing, how we were changing as a group, and the good that we were doing. And that wouldn't have been possible without you guys. Like, you as a media team made such a huge impact. It's going to reach so many people. That's so exciting.
Yeah, I think the media team has a lot of like delayed gratification almost. Because the rest of us, we were interacting with church members and stuff every day, and they're very behind the scenes, and they were filming us and they were catching every single moment, and people really haven't seen it yet, but what they did is so beautiful. And I think more than anything, like, what we did in Chetumal now can be spread across the world, and that story can be told everywhere because of the work that they put in. And that's so special.
Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I want to ask you guys one more question. For a student who might be considering going on a trip like this to preach or help out on a media team, what advice would you give them? What was something that you think is the most important reason that they should go?
That's a good question. I think, first of all, if someone is considering it, I 100% recommend it. I think that there was a sense of fulfillment found there that's a little bit difficult to find in college because you're so busy and preoccupied with your own stuff. It's hard to look past that and to serve and to show up. So I feel like actually that would be my advice, is if you are looking for some sort of fulfillment, if you're looking to feel satisfied and to help other people, if you're genuinely like selflessly wanting to serve, this is an opportunity for you. And you will learn so much, you will grow so much, and at the same time you'll build fun relationships, have fun. It's something that I think anybody in college should get to experience.
I would say, like, if you're confused and if you see like people talking about an ERC mission trip and you're thinking, why would I go on that? Like, what place do I have on a mission trip like that? If you think anything like that, where's my camera? Go on the trip. Because let me tell you right now, I never in a million years thought the trip would have the impact that it had on me that it did. I kind of just blindly went into it and I said, you know what? God is gonna show me what the purpose of this was. So I would say just go and wait for God to reveal to you what his plan was later, because I think don't deny yourself that experience. I think it's one that is so unique and you're not really gonna find anywhere else. So do it here, do it that one time, and you'll really enjoy it and you'll be happy that you went.
Yeah, like I said before, God, if you're called, you're called. It's not one of those phone calls that you get and you're like, nah, I'm gonna send it to voicemail. Pick it up. Pick up the phone. Be like, I want to go.
You're preaching next
All
time.
right.
That's not happening. But, pick up the phone and be like, yeah, God, I want to do this. Show me the opportunity. And, it might not be the first one or the second one or the third one, but the opportunity is coming. You just need to pick up the phone. And you need to say, hey, I found something, let's go do it. And God's going to be like, I got you. We're going to do it together. And you might be scared right now. You might be worried. You might be like, hey, I'm terrified of preaching, but I'm going to go preach. Or I'm not really grounded in my abilities to do like construction or camera work or any other opportunities that you have. But we're going to do it together. I'm going to wrap you with angels, and I'm not going to let you go.
I mean, I think it plays perfectly into that saying, like, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And I think that is literally the perfect analogy for this mission trip. I think just going on a mission trip like this, don't expect to be prepared for something like this.
You don't have to be
will prepare
perfect,
you
yeah.
when you get there. And he's got a plan, and all you have to do is just follow his lead.
Wow, thank you guys so much for sharing your experiences. I, for one, am very touched, and I'm just very grateful to have been able to hear all of your experiences. Just thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
Of course.
Hey, thank you so much for tuning into another episode of Ignite.
At the time of this episode's release, we will be preparing for our university's Giving Day, where the SJC will be fundraising for future mission trips for our department.
We appreciate any kind of donation for students to have an opportunity to use their communication and media skills out in the field doing mission work.
If you would like to see more of our episodes, you can find them on our YouTube, the School of Journalism and Communication, as well as find updates on our Instagram at IgniteSAU.
And you can also find our audio episodes on our Spotify.
See you next time. Bye.
Bye.